وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأزواجه وذرياته ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Continuation of the seerah of Fatima bint Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Her name was Fatima. Fatima, the word comes from the root word Fatuma. Fatuma is a child when is weaned from breastfeeding. Fatuma al-tiflu or Fatima al-tiflatu, Fatima al-tiflatu. The Arabs say that the child has been weaned away to regular food. Now what's one of the secrets? Her name was given to her by the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to one narration. Her marriage was also done by the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to many ahadith. But some of the scholars say that Fatima or Fatima, because she was weaned away. You know what is weaning? The word weaning? I'm kidding. When someone leaves something, when you're cut off from something, is called weaning. Her life, her entire life, she was weaned away from the luxury of this world, from the beginning all the way until the end. It is mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca, after becoming a prophet, when she was, according to the most sound narration, she was only 5 years old. According to some, she was even younger. The Prophet ﷺ, however, during his stay in Mecca, mostly she was very young. As a child, she would go around and sometimes see her father. At one point, she went to the Kaaba because she lived nearby where the Safa and Marwa is. That's where the Prophet ﷺ's home was. She went to the Kaaba and she saw the Prophet ﷺ praying, and one of the kuffar, one of the disbelievers, came and brought the guts of a dead camel and brought all that intestine, everything, and put on the neck of the Prophet ﷺ while he was in sujood. And Fatima, she came and she's moving it, trying to use her weak small hands, move it, but she couldn't. So she has seen a lot, and she has seen a lot of difficulty in her life. Even when later on when she got married, and we will go through that as well. At one time, the Prophet ﷺ came back from an expedition, and there was a lot of spoil of beauty of war, the ghanima, and there were a lot of servants as well. And the Prophet ﷺ was giving away, and Ali radiallahu anh came home and he said, "It's been so many years. We have been struggling in our home. We have few things in our house. You can count on your finger how many things that we have. We have only one blanket to cover ourselves, and when we cover up to our face when it's cold, in Medina it gets really cold, who have been there know it, our legs will uncover, and if we try to cover our feet, our face will uncover." So they were struggling even with the basics and the bare necessities. So he said to Fatima, his wife, that why don't you go and ask your father for some help? We have been struggling for many, many years. And because it was her father and she was more closer to him, so she went to her father and she came in, she saw there's so many people around. And she was a very shy person. So she didn't say anything. The Prophet ﷺ saw her. He knew that she came for something. He didn't say anything as well. She goes back and she says to Ali that, well, I couldn't say anything. The Prophet ﷺ, however, came in the evening, met both of them and said to Fatima, "You came this morning, what happened? You had something to say, but you didn't." She said, "Well, you know our situation. We needed some help, and you had something, and you were helping so many other people." The Prophet ﷺ said to her, "Well, there is so many others," and he mentioned a few tribes that they are in desperate need and I cannot see them in that situation. I have to give to all of them first. And perhaps nothing remains for you, for both of you, but I have something to give you. And he said, say Subhanallah 33 times before going to sleep. And 33 times Alhamdulillah, and 33 times Allahu Akbar. That's better than anything that you can find in this world. SubhanAllah, that gift that was gifted to them, it is mentioned that even Ali radiallahu anhu, even the worst situations, even the Battle of Siffin, that's the most difficult time in his life, where he's fighting, and that night, someone asked him, even on that night, you didn't leave saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar 33 times each? He said, not even that time. So it was a tradition that was passed on, and until this day it's alive. And what is it called? We all know, Tasbihat al-Fatimiyya, Fatimi Tasbihat. So it's the Fatimiyya Tasbihat that we say after the prayer and before going to sleep in particular. There was another dua that the Prophet ﷺ also taught Fatima radiallahu anha, and we'll talk about that later, I guess. Let's go about her other names. Her name was also Zahra. Zahra means flower, rose. She was the rose of the Prophet ﷺ, that's why she was called Zahra. The Prophet ﷺ used to call her Abiha, that the mother of your father. So, and I was very surprised in Pakistan. I saw a father saying to his daughter, Amma. And then I said, why are you calling her Amma? It's not your mother, just daughter. And then I just reflect on this hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ, that's how he used to call Fatima radiallahu anha, Abi, the father, the mother of your father. Her name is also known as, so that was her nickname that the Prophet ﷺ called her with, and nobody else would do that. She's also known as Batul. Batala also has the same meaning of Fatuma, to cut something. She was cut off and made special from among all the other women, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made her, including the other three, the best of all women. فضلها على نساء العالمين. Maryam bint Imran, Khadija, Fatima, and Asiya. These four are mentioned in the hadith, and there's another one as well that I mentioned last night. The marriage, now she grows up and she's in Medina. The second of Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ is looking and expecting her to get married. She has reached the age of marriage. It is mentioned that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, although he already offered his daughter to the Prophet ﷺ, but that closeness and that connection that he had with the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted that relation to even get stronger. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, how about you marry your daughter to me, Fatima? According to one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that about Fatima, I'm going to just wait for what Allah orders me to do. And according to another one, he said, you are a very good person. He said something very polite and very nice. And he went to Umar. So he was not just interested in getting married to this girl. He went to Umar and he said, well, you are also very close to the Prophet. Why don't you ask the Prophet that you marry Fatima radiallahu anha? Umar was Umar. Went to the Prophet ﷺ, said the same thing. The Prophet ﷺ answered the same way, that I will wait for what Allah has decreed for her. Then they say, Ali, oh, he's a young man, he's from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. They both go to him and they say, you go. You are closer to the Prophet, you are his cousin, and so on and so forth. And the Prophet knows that how old are you in Islam? Qidamak fil Islam, meaning that you have been Muslim from day one. He's the first young man to accept Islam. So he says, okay, he puts on his shirt and his top, and it was just a piece of cloth, and he was rushing that, the Rawi says that he didn't even wrap it around, he was running. So he just put his cloth over, and he was dragging the cloth on the floor, and he went to the Prophet ﷺ, and he sat in front of him, and he said, I am close to you, and I am, been with you from day one, and so on and so forth. According to one narration, he couldn't say anything after that. He kind of felt shy to ask the hand of his daughter. So he just stayed quiet, and he said, "Are you asking about Fatima?" And he says, "Yes." The Prophet ﷺ said that, "What do you have?" So that's an indication that he agrees. What do you have to give? He says, "I have only two things. I have my camel, and I have my armor, dirh." He said, "Okay, you need a camel. That's your right. Why don't you go and sell your dirh and come back?" So he goes and he sells it, and he comes back with 480 dirham. It's not a lot of money. 480 dirham. He comes to the Prophet ﷺ and says, "Here it is." The Prophet ﷺ says, "Take out some of the dirham," and he calls one of the ladies, and he says, "Take this money and go and buy something that a bride will need." And then she goes and buys stuff, and they get married. According to, there are many riwayat of what he was given, he gave to Fatima radiallahu anha. However, the Prophet ﷺ gave a few things to Fatima radiallahu anha. He gave a blanket, a pillow, and that pillow was filled with leaves. And that pillow was made out of leather. And a bowl and a container to put water made out of clay. And according to one narration, he gave two of those. That was the thing that he gave to his daughter, Sayyidatul Nisa'il Alameen, and the daughter of Sayyid al-Mursaleen, the master of all humanity. That was the marriage. And the Prophet ﷺ said to Ali that he should do a walima. He said, "I don't have anything." He said to one of the Ansar, "Can you bring a goat and slaughter it and feed the people?" According to some of the other riwayat, there were many occasions of walima in the time of Ali radiallahu anhu's marriage. Some brought something from home, mixed it with others, and fed the people who were around. And at one point, at some time, someone brought some food, and then the Prophet ﷺ went and shared with the rest of his family members. And then that feast was open to the public. Wait to see a walima like that in ICN.
So was it a goat or is it a sheep?
Goat or sheep? Four?
Yeah. So Prophet asked one of the Ansar to get a goat to
sheep. Yeah,
sheep.
a lamb to bring in the Prophet ﷺ, however, when he came, when she was sent to Ali radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ said that you both wait for me until I come. The Prophet ﷺ came, and he read something on a bowl of water, and took a sip of it, and he put that sip back in the water from his mouth, mixed it with the rest of the water, and then took some of the water, splashed it on both of their heads, their shoulders, and their feet. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua for both of them, and made dua for their children. So in marriage, it's very important to make dua for both of them, and also make dua for the children. They're already married, they're happy, inshallah. Make dua for the children. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected, because he said, "Oh Allah, protect them from the hellfire." That's one of the du'as that he gave. And many of the hadith also talk about the different du'as that he said to both of them. So that was the marriage of Khadija radiallahu anha, the Prophet ﷺ's youngest child, Fatima radiallahu anha, with Ali radiallahu anhu. Inshallah, we will talk a little bit about her life and her death, inshallah, tomorrow, as completing the children of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanallah al-azim, subhanallah wa bihamdi, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Make sure, tonight, let's make this kind of commitment that inshallah before going to sleep, we're going to do tasbihat al-Fatihah, inshallah, honoring the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Inshallah.